Hey everyone, I wanted to try something different. I'm going to call it the book speed round. Now, you can learn a lot of incredible things from books. And so, what I'm going to be doing is every 5 seconds, I'm going to show you a new book and give you my opinion in that short amount of time on why you should read it and how it can really help you. So, let's just get started. Mindset, The New Psychology of Success. This book was recommended by Bill Gates this year in his annual book recommendation thing. I think it's very useful. I mean, there's a lot of science behind it. It's by a PhD, and it talks about parenting, business, school, relationships. That's very important. If you want your kid to succeed, if you want to make more money, if you want to, get good grades, if you want to have, stronger relationships with less fighting, check this thing out. Second, what I learned losing $1 million. This one is obviously very important because guess what? There's if you make the money, now you gotta worry or not worry, but you have to make sure you don't lose it as quickly. So that's very important, and this is a lesson a lot of millionaires learn after they earn their first million. The first million is always the hardest. Master key system. No idea what this is. I checked it out. Haven't read it yet. Seems quite interesting though. I don't know. What I wish I knew when I was 20. I love finding and discovering books and articles on this sort of stuff because it's like, well, what if I can save like 30 years worth of time not making these mistakes and regrets? So I love finding stuff like this, and I've watched a ton of YouTube videos on topics like this. So that's very important. The Lean Startup. This one is very famous as well. I mean, a lot of these books are very, well sold. This one is basically about starting a business for a very little money. So I heard about this previously, and I was just like, okay, gimmicky title, probably not that good. But apparently, this book is insanely good, and I think the author is very reputable too. And basically, it's about how you don't need millions of dollars to start a business. You can start a business for a lot less, be a lot more efficient, not waste a bunch of money on stupid stuff, and succeed. Next one. If you want advice from a billionaire, this is probably one of the more interesting ones you should check out. So, Martha Stewart is a female billionaire. She's one of the few out of Oprah and J.K. Rowling. Oprah has also written a book on success, as has her. So I found her very interesting because she did it in a very unique way. She had a business model, but she did it through her passion, which was cooking. And what's so interesting about her is her whole story, how she thinks. She doesn't make emotions something that's a key component of business. I haven't read the book yet, but I've heard a lot about her. And like with many, many billionaires and successful people, I just did a little digging. I was like, wouldn't it be so great if she wrote a book on success? And she just poured out her heart on what you needed to know. And it's not that thick of a book, but it's still pretty, deep. And there's some great meat in there. And I mean, why listen to advice from a millionaire when you can listen to advice from a billionaire who has, I mean, that's a lot tougher to do. And I was just shocked, like I was numerous times, when I found that she actually wrote a book, because you wouldn't assume that they have. But it's like almost 9 times out of 10, okay, maybe 5 times out of 10, I'm just surprised. So, very incredible book I'm looking forward to. The $100 Startup, another very well known book, again, around the same concepts like Lean Startup. I've heard Lean Startup is better, but you have to see for yourself. Things I wish I knew before we got married. So marriage books are very important because nowadays everyone's getting divorced. They're losing a lot of money because they didn't think things through. It's a huge mess, so very important book. It's by Gary Chapman. This one I've heard of. This guy is apparently like really well known. Jack Canfield, co-creator of Chicken Soup of the Soul. And I've heard about this book. I don't know if it's that good. It doesn't seem bad. It's really thick though. It's called The Success Principles, how to get from where you are to where you want to be. The thing with this is there's like a million books like this from very successful people. That doesn't mean it's not worth reading. It's just that there's a lot of, content like this out there already. But for someone who's never read a book on success, I highly encourage it, especially from someone who's succeeded and figured it out. Last one, Why Smart Marketing is About Help, Not Hype. Utility. So this one is a very interesting book. I've gotten recommendations on this one. Again, I'm not some super speed reader or anything. In fact, I haven't read any of these books I've just mentioned. I just picked them up and I skim them and I figure out like what's useful and what I can do, because my time, I'm a slow reader. So I try and figure out which one of these books is worth my time. And then if it's really good, then I'll read the whole thing. But this one is called Utility, and apparently it's about the new world and how to properly utilize, marketing and customers, and I guess higher level like business stuff, really. But it's like really bite-sized and like not that like thick and stuff. And I want to give you a bonus one. So it's just very, very crazy when you do this stuff. Like, you find like this billionaire, or you find this really successful person, and you're like, there's no way they wrote a book on how they were successful and gave all their secrets in it. And then I just do a search on Amazon, and I'm just constantly surprised. So Martha Stewart, she's written like 50 or 100, maybe 200 plus cooking recipe books. So I dug through all those and I found her book on success, which I'm just very excited about. And this one is called The Big Picture by Tony Horton. So the long story short, how I found this guy was I looked up infomercials and I tried to figure out what were the best-selling infomercials of all time, because there's a lot of science and psychology and real value that has to be created for infomercial to do well. And some of these things like create millions upon millions of dollars of sales. And so it's a very competitive market with a ton of like competing products. Long story short, I found this thing called P90X. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's really well known. Apparently it's one of, if not the most sold, highest profitable infomercials of all time. And so I'm just like, who created P90X? Tony Horton. Okay, it's a long shot, but I want to see if he wrote any books. I searched it up, found this baby here, and this is like one of 100 times I've done this and just been so shocked. His book is called The Big Picture, 11 Laws That Will Change Your Life. And these are like success laws. And I'm not gonna lie, like some of this stuff is just surprising, because you would assume that they're all the same stuff, like the same success principles. And oftentimes a lot of the stuff is the same, but sometimes you get surprised. Some of the stuff in here is like, it's interesting. I mean, for me, I've heard a lot of it, but some of it's still like, oh, I haven't heard it with that story or angle. And for anyone new, they probably haven't heard any of this. So this is incredible advice from incredible people. I highly suggest you check it out. And thank you for watching.